The Generals of the Yang Family, Chapter 14.
Imagine this for a second. You are a general. And I don't mean just, a guy of criminal. I mean, you are on an absolute historic winning streak.
Right.
You've been pushing back an enemy that has harassed your country's borders for years. You've got them on the run. They are humiliated, they're retreating, and you can practically see their capital city on the horizon.
You're at the finish line.
Exactly. You are ready to deliver that final knockout blow. So you send a message to your boss, the emperor, saying, hey, give me a little more food, a few more supplies, and I can end this threat forever. And instead of reinforcements, you get a letter.
A letter telling you to come home?
Right now. Mission aborted.
It is. I mean, it's the ultimate nightmare for a military leader.
Yeah.
It's that precise moment where operational success collides just head on with political reality.
And usually politics wins.
Usually.
And that collision is exactly what we're unpacking today. But going through this chapter, it feels less like an action movie and more like a masterclass in grand strategy.
Absolutely. If you really read between the lines, this chapter is a study on that tension between, seizing an opportunity and knowing when to stop.
Right.
It gives us three very distinct models of leadership.
Okay.
The warrior, the statesman, and the sage. And honestly, that sage component offers a perspective on governance that's, shockingly modern.
Even if it involves a guy who apparently sleeps for months at a time.
Right, even with that.
We will definitely get to the sage and that famous story of him falling off a donkey in a bit. But we have to start with the warrior, General Yang Ye.
Of course.
Looking at the logistics described in the text, the situation is pretty clear. He's at Huaqiao Pass, and the momentum is it's undeniable. The source says the Liao troops are humiliated.
That's the key word there, humiliated. You have momentum. Yang Ye is looking at the tactical map. He sees an enemy that is demoralized, disorganized. So he sends a messenger back to the capital.
Caillou,
right? And it's not just to brag about the wins. He's making a very specific request. He needs supplies. He wants to push forward and take the whole region of Yangyu.
which is a massive prize. This isn't just some border skirmish.
No. He's talking about reclaiming significant territory, a real buffer zone. And initially, Emperor Taizong is completely on board. The text says he was greatly pleased.
He even wanted to lead the campaign personally. He's ready to saddle up.
So you have a general pressing the gas, the emperor's foot is on the gas, and then suddenly Minister Zhang Kexian just yanks the emergency brake.
And he does it with this very specific, almost philosophical argument. It's not just we can't afford it.
No, it's much deeper. He submits a memorial, which is basically a formal policy paper that reframes the entire war. He brings up this idea of the root versus the branch.
I found this part fascinating. He's using farming terms to talk about national security.
Exactly. He argues that internal stability, that's the root, external expansion fighting these so-called barbarians, that's just the branch.
His point is, if the root is rotting, it doesn't matter how big the branches get. The whole tree is coming down.
Precisely. He's telling the emperor that the resources needed to take Yuzhou would drain the economy, maybe even cause unrest back home. But then he goes a step further.
This is the part that really surprised me.
Yeah, he basically blames his own government.
He says, and I'm paraphrasing here, look, border troubles aren't always started by the other guys. It's often our own officials harassing them. He's pretty much saying, we might be the bad guys here.
Or at least the instigators. It's a really bold move. He's shifting the blame from, evil invaders to corrupt management. His whole argument is choosing the right generals is better than choosing soldiers.
Manage your own people properly.
Right. If you have disciplined border guards who don't provoke people and you have good defenses, the enemy won't even attack. He believes in winning through stability, not through warfare.
The best victory is winning without fighting. It's very Sun Tzu, but it's also, very convenient if you're a bureaucrat who wants to save some money or maybe doesn't want the generals getting too powerful. And Prime Minister Zhao Pu backs him up.
He does. He calls it the urgent task of the day. And just like that, a consensus forms. Defense over offense.
And that consensus is strong enough to sway the emperor. The recall order goes out, which brings us back to the front lines.
Yep, and now we see the real-world impact. Yang Ye is holding that order to retreat, and his son Yande is he's losing his mind.
Yande is really the voice of the audience here, right? He's screaming, opportunity is hard to get. He says they could take the city in 10 days.
And he's probably right. Tactically, given the state of the Liao troops, he's probably right. It's right there for the taking.
And this is where Yang Ye's character is so interesting, because he actually agrees with his son. He says, I also have this ambition. He wants it.
He wants the glory, he wants the win, but he refuses to disobey. He brings up the concept of Junming,
The sovereign's command.
the sovereign's command. And this is the core of his dilemma. For us today, we'd say, just ignore the email, take the city, apologize later.
Of course.
But Yang Ye explains that even if they attacked and won, that victory would be, quote, insufficient to cover the crime of insubordination.
That's such a crucial cultural point.
It's everything. In that worldview, a rogue general who wins is actually more dangerous to the state than a general who loses but follows orders.
Because it undermines the whole system.
Exactly. Stability depends on the hierarchy, not just the scoreboard. If generals start making their own calls, you don't have an army anymore, you have warlords.
So he chooses the hierarchy. He organizes this very disciplined retreat, splitting troops to prevent an ambush, but the text doesn't let us off the hook.
No, it doesn't. There's a poem inserted from a commentator named Jing Xuan, and it foreshadows that this specific decision, this retreat, is what leads to the tragedy at Chen Family Valley later in the story.
It's a haunting little detail. The poem basically suggests that by not striking when the enemy was weak, Yang Yi dooms himself to a much worse fate later on.
It implies that the safe choice now created the disaster of the future. The root was saved, but the branch grew back and, well, eventually strangled them.
Which is the brutal irony of grand strategy. But for now, in Chapter 14, the crisis is averted. Yang Yi goes back to the capital, beyond Jing. He gets a hero's welcome. It's a win for the peace faction.
And that victory for the peace faction leads us right to our second type of leader, the statesman.
Yeah.
We just saw Prime Minister Zhao Pu argue for the retreat.
Right.
Now that the borders are secure, in his eyes, he does something almost unthinkable in modern politics.
He quits.
He quits.
And it's not one of those, I want to spend more time with my family resignations, where he goes and joins a corporate board 6 months later.
Not at all. He goes to the emperor and describes himself as old and rotten. He says his body is withered. It is incredibly self-deprecating.
Can you imagine a prime minister today submitting a letter saying, I am literally decaying?
It's dramatic, but it's also a kind of ritual. It's a performance of humility. Zhao Pu is a legend. He's been there since the start. By stepping down, he's signaling that the emergency is over.
It's time for a peacetime administration.
Yes. He's removing himself so the next generation can step up.
The emperor fights it, though. He brings up their shared history, mentions the days when they both wore cloth robes back when they were just ordinary guys. It's a very human moment.
It is. But he accepts it, and he throws this huge farewell banquet. And this is where the source really highlights the power of poetry in that culture.
Right. Poetry wasn't just art. It was like political currency.
It was how you communicated deep emotions that you couldn't say in formal prose. So the emperor writes a poem for Zhao Pu. He praises his hard work, but the critical line is a directive.
He tells him not to let his heart drift too far from the capital.
Essentially, you can retire, but you're still on call.
And Zhao Pu's reaction is so intense, he weeps. He vows to have the poem carved on stone and buried with him.
And then he says that thing that sounds so strange to us now. He says he hopes in his next life to serve as a dog or horse to repay the emperor.
Which to us sounds degrading.
It does. But in that context, it means ultimate loyalty. A creature that exists only to serve and protect its master without ego, without political ambition. He's setting the gold standard for what a virtuous minister should be.
You serve, you stabilize, and then you get out of the way.
And clear the path of the new guard, people like Song Shi and Li Fang. So we've had the warrior who obeyed and the statesman who retired. Which brings us to the third figure.
And this is where the tone shifts completely.
It really does. Enter the sage, Chen Tuan.
Chen Tuan is such a character. The text treats him almost like a celebrity cameo.
Right.
He's this Taoist hermit living on Mount Hua, and he's famous not for fighting or politics, but for sleeping.
A lot of sleeping. The text says, big sleep 3,000 days, small sleep 800 days.
Which I have to assume is hyperbole for, like, deep meditation. Or maybe he was just really, really good at avoiding meetings.
Could be, but he's not totally disconnected. There's that great anecdote the text brings up. When he heard the Song dynasty had been founded, he was on a donkey and laughed so hard he fell off.
Shouting, "The world is at peace now," from the ground.
Exactly. He's this observer of history, watching from a distance. So Emperor Taizong summons him to court. And you have to imagine the scene. The emperor and all these serious Confucian ministers are waiting for this this wizard to arrive.
They are expecting fireworks. The source is pretty funny here. It says they were hoping for mysterious silence or alchemy or transforming cinnabar.
They wanted magic. They wanted a secret to immortality or a way to turn lead into gold. A magic bullet for the Empire's problem.
Fix our budget with alchemy.
Exactly. A shortcut. And Chen Tuan shows up and just completely shatters that expectation. He says, I'm just a useless mountain man. I don't know any magic. And then he drops the most important line in the chapter.
Even if I could fly to heaven in broad daylight, how would that help the world?
Such a pragmatic takedown.
Yeah.
He's telling them, who cares if I can fly? That doesn't fix the harvest. That doesn't feed the people.
He pivots the whole conversation away from magic and towards governance.
He does. He tells the emperor that the true alchemy is one heart and one virtue. He says the only potion that matters is the ruler and his ministers working together to govern benevolently.
So the real magic is just doing your job well, competent administration.
It's boring. It's consistent administration. It is unsexy. But Chen Tuan is arguing that this is the real Tao. And the ministers are stunned, but they're also deeply impressed.
Because he just validated their entire career.
He told them their daily grind in the government office is a higher calling than brewing potions in a cave.
It's a brilliant move. The emperor gives him a fancy title, Mr. Xi, and sends him home. Everyone's happy.
And Chen Tuan gets to go back to his nap, having successfully dodged a government job.
The scene shifts abruptly. Imagine you're a mid-level manager, right, in this massive high-stakes company.
Okay.
And the CEO announces a mandatory company-wide retreat. And I don't mean, a casual Friday with some stale pizza.
Right.
No, I mean a 3-day government-mandated bender. Attendance is tracked. Enthusiasm is basically enforced by law. And you have to party until you drop.
That sounds like the absolute definition of mandatory fun. Which is usually, neither fun nor optional.
Exactly. But it gets worse. So you spend 3 days drinking, you're watching parades, telling the CEO how great he is, you're exhausted, you're hungover.
Mm-hmm.
And then right at the end, the CEO drags everyone out back, hands you a weapon and says, okay, hit this target at 100 paces. If you hit it, you get a bonus. If you miss, you're fired.
Wow.
And we're shipping you to a branch office in the middle of nowhere.
That is a harsh performance review.
That is the scenario we're unpacking today.
And this is such a rich text because, I mean, on the surface, it reads like an action movie script. You've got massive parties, poetry slams, high-stakes archery, palace fires.
Everything.
But if you peel back the layers, which is what we're here to do, it's really this profound case study on political paranoia. It's about the extreme lengths a government will go to perform stability when, deep down, they know everything is just hanging by a thread.
We're calling this the Fake It Till You Make It episode, Imperial Edition. So let's set the scene. The source text places us in the second year of the Young Shi era. It's springtime.
Right. But context here is absolutely key. The Song dynasty is famous in Chinese history for prioritizing culture, bureaucracy, the civil or the Wen over the military, the Wu. But at this specific moment, under Emperor Taizong, the empire is still, solidifying. The borders are quiet, technically, but it's a nervous quiet, the kind of quiet where you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
So Taizong issues an edict, and he starts with a very bold claim. He says, the beacon fires are extinguished.
Okay, let's pause on beacon fires for a second. In this era, long-distance communication, it was all done with smoke signals on hilltops.
Right, I've seen that in movies.
Yeah, exactly. So if you saw smoke, it meant invasion. If the skies were clear, it meant peace. Taizong is basically claiming the skies are clear. He says he wants to share the joy of peace with the people.
He orders something called a sibu. Now, help us out here. I know it involves wine, but what exactly is a sibu?
So literally, it translates to something like a drinking feast.
Yeah.
But in this context, it isn't just a happy hour. It's a huge state-sponsored festival. It's the emperor opening the imperial coffers to, lubricate the populace for 3 days straight. It's a release valve.
The description in the text is absolutely wild. It says the emperor climbs the Danfeng Tower, the Tower of the Red Phoenix, to watch everything, and the props they build. It sounds like a modern Super Bowl halftime show.
It really does. The text mentions mountain carts and land boats.
Wait, land boats?
Yeah.
What are those?
Think of them as these elaborate parade floats, structures built to look like ships, draped in silk, brightly painted. But they're on wheels. They're sailing through the dry streets of the capital. It's just a spectacle.
Pure theater. It says musicians were lining the roads all the way from the Imperial Garden to the army camps. Music played in unison. The spectators were rich and noble. It sounds so idyllic.
It sounds expensive. And frankly, if you read between the lines, it sounds a little desperate.
Desperate? How so?
Well, think about why you throw a party this big. You don't do it when everyone is naturally relaxed. You do it when you need to prove everyone is relaxed. And the text gives us a clue, because right after describing the glitter and the land boats, the narrator inserts a poem.
Oh, I noted that. It was such a jarring shift in tone.
A huge shift.
The poem basically says, sure, you're dancing now, but the smoke from the beacon fires has barely cleared.
Exactly. It says, the beacon fires have just been extinguished. Just, as in, like, yesterday.
Yeah.
And then it drops the hammer. It explicitly mentions the regions of Yu and Liao.
So the poem is basically calling out the court.
It's criticizing them for celebrating peace when the enemy is literally sitting on their doorstep.
So it's like celebrating a touchdown when you're still losing the game by 20 points.
And the other team is twice your size and waiting in the parking lot.
Yeah.
The land boats are a distraction from the terrifying military threat of the Liao.
So the emperor is essentially gaslighting his own capital city with this parade. Everything is fine. Look at the pretty boats.
In a way, yes. He is curating a narrative. Look at the boats. Don't look at the border. He's trying to will peace into existence through spectacle.
Okay, so that's day one, the street party. Day two, the camera zooms in. We leave the streets. We go into the palace garden to enjoy flowers.
And enjoying flowers is a classic euphemism for a high society drinking party. But with Taizong, you can never just drink, right? You have to perform.
This is where the real performance review starts. The emperor looks at his ministers. These are the guys who run the armies, the taxes, everything, and says, the weather is nice, the flowers are blooming, write me a poem.
And this is the quintessential Song dynasty pressure cooker. You know, in the West at this time, it was all about martial prowess. But in China, your political legitimacy was so deeply tied to literary ability. If you couldn't write an elegant poem on command, you were seen as, well, unfit to rule.
So we have three contenders mentioned, and I think what they write says a lot about their survival strategies in this court.
Absolutely. Let's break them down. Who went first?
A guy named Song Qi. He steps up, grabs the fancy flower stationery, nice detail, by the way, and writes a poem calling the emperor a flying dragon.
Okay, so strategy number one, sycophancy, but it's cosmic sycophancy. He's not just saying, you're a good boss. Flying Dragon links the emperor to the I Ching, to the fundamental forces of the universe. He's telling the emperor, you are the center of everything.
Then we have Li Feng. His poem is a bit more grounded. He writes about troops coming in from barbarian lands and people singing songs.
Right. Strategy number two, the technocrat. Li Feng's appealing to the administrator in Taizong. He's confirming the system works. Tributes are coming in, means foreign policy is working. People are singing, means domestic approval is high. It's a status report in verse.
The KPIs are all green, Your Majesty.
Pretty much, yeah.
And finally, Lu Mengzing. He writes about saintly rule and loyalty.
Strategy number three, Confucian morality. He's focusing on the virtue of the ruler. It's safe, it's dignified, but it's a little dry. It's the HR-approved poem.
So the emperor reviews them. He calls Li Feng's poem clear and lovely. Lu Mengzing's is noble and loyal. But he declares Song Qi the winner.
And why do you think that is?
Well, based on what you said about the Liao threat, Song Qi's poem was the one that projected the most power. The emperor called it unrivaled spirit.
Precisely. Taizong is insecure. He knows the peace is fragile. He doesn't need a status report from Li Feng. He knows the status is shaky. He needs mythology. He needs to be the flying dragon. Song Qi gave him the propaganda he wanted, so Song Qi wins.
He even orders the poems engraved on stone at the pavilion. He's cementing this reality.
And then the mask slips.
It slips hard. This is the moment in the text that gave me whiplash. They're all celebrating the poetry, drinking wine, and suddenly Taizong's face just changes. He says, literature is a happy matter, but military affairs cannot be forgotten.
This is the pivot. The Wen, the civil, has had its moment. Now comes the Wu, the military. The emperor is almost bipolar in his governance here. He builds up the soft power, then immediately panics and has to check the hard power.
He orders an archery range set up right there in the garden, and the target is at 100 paces. Is that far?
For a recurve bow with no modern sights, after drinking for 2 days, yes.
Oh, no.
100 paces is a significant distance. You need serious strength and incredible focus. It's not something you can just luck into.
And he splits the court into two teams. The red robes, the princes, and the green robes, the generals.
The color coding is a nice touch, isn't it?
Hmm.
It visually separates the bloodline from the military staff,
Yeah.
pits the family against the employees.
And here are the stakes. The emperor says, if you hit the red heart, you get a horse and a brocade robe. Great prizes. But
If you miss, you descend to a remote post.
he is threatening to exile them on the spot for missing a target in a garden game.
This is the stress test. I mean, imagine the psychological terror. You're a minister or a prince, you've spent your whole life climbing the ladder, and now your entire career hinges on one arrow.
Why do this? Is he just a sadist? Or just drunk?
I don't think it's just sadism. It's a loyalty test and a readiness drill. Taizong's message is, do not get comfortable. The flowers, the wine, that's for the common people. For you, the elite, the war never ends. He needs to know who will crumble when the Liao cavalry actually shows up.
So the pressure is immense, and the first person to step up is from the red team, the princes. It's the Prince of Qin, Ting Mai.
Ah, Ting Mai. He's a fascinating figure. The emperor's brother, or close relative. There's always this tension around him with the succession. So when he steps up, he isn't just shooting for a robe, he's shooting for his political life.
And the text says he rides out, pulls the bow, and snap, hits the red heart, piercing a willow leaf.
The relief in that garden must have been palpable. He proved he's still a warrior, still useful.
So then the green team has to answer. General Cao Bin steps up. Now, Cao Bin is a big deal.
He's the general of this era, the grand strategist. If he misses, it signals that the entire army is weak.
But he doesn't miss. Hits the bullseye dead on. The crowd cheers. The emperor is thrilled. He hands out the horses and robes.
So it's a successful simulation. The royals are strong. The generals are strong. The performance of the state is complete. Taizong can sleep easy tonight.
And the sun sets. The contest is over. The winners are riding out of the garden with their prizes, music playing. Feels like the story should end here, right? A successful company retreat.
But it doesn't. And this is where the text takes a turn into, like, Greek tragedy territory. Because while everyone was looking at the winners, we forgot to ask a very important question. Who wasn't invited?
Right. We're introduced to a character we haven't seen yet, Prince Yuanzhou.
Yuanzhou, the emperor's eldest son.
The text gives us a quick profile. He's intelligent. He looks exactly like the emperor, which I assume is a big deal, and he's the emperor's favorite.
Looking like the emperor is a huge deal in dynastic politics. It implies a kind of biological destiny to rule. And being the eldest son, I mean, he should be the star of this show. He should be leading the red team.
But there's a complication. The source says he had suffered from a madness, a mental illness, but had recently recovered. But because he had been sick, the emperor left him off the guest list.
It's a protective measure, ostensibly. Rest at home, son. This party is too loud for you. The stress might trigger a relapse.
But Yuanzhou doesn't see it that way at all.
No. Put yourself in his shoes. You're the heir apparent. You hear the music. You see the lanterns. You know the entire court is there. Your uncles, the generals, everyone. And you were sitting alone in the dark.
And the inciting incident happens at twilight. Yuanzhou hears a procession passing his gate. He asks his servants, "What's all that noise?"
And the servants, who clearly lack any diplomatic training, just tell him the truth. They say, "Oh, that's your uncle, the Prince of Qin. He just won an archery contest, and he's parading home with his prize."
And that just breaks him. The text quotes him crying out, "Others attend the feast. I alone am not there. They have discarded me."
Discarded. That is the key word. He doesn't see his exclusion as medical care. He sees it as political erasure. In this court, where missing a target gets you exiled, being invisible is a death sentence.
And his reaction is extreme. He doesn't just write a sad poem. He gets drunk, angry drunk. And late at night, he sets fire to his own palace.
This is symbolic suicide. The text describes the carved beams and painted rafters turning to ash. These are the symbols of his status. By burning the palace, he's burning his connection to the family. He's screaming, "If I'm not part of this, I'll burn the whole house down."
The army rushes in but fails. The palace is just destroyed.
Now look at that contrast. All day, the emperor's been building things up. Land boats, stone inscriptions, reputations. This perfect image of order. And in one night, his own son burns a hole right in the middle of it all.
The next morning, Taizong finds out. His favorite son, the heir, has committed arson.
And this is the ultimate test for the emperor. Does he act as a father? Or does he act as the state?
If he's a father, maybe he sees a cry for help. My son is relapsing. He needs care.
But he doesn't do that.
No. The text is brutal. Emperor Taizong stripped Yuanzhou of his titles, made him a commoner, and exiled him to Junzhou.
He chooses the state. Yuanzhou became a source of instability. He disrupted the joy of peace narrative. So, just like the minister who misses the target, Yuanzhou gets removed.
It all circles back to that archery threat. Miss the target, get exiled. Yuanzhou didn't even get to hold the bow, and he got the same punishment.
It's ruthless efficiency. But it reveals the tragedy at the heart of this system. Taizong spent so much energy projecting unity to the outside world, to the Liao enemies, that he just completely neglected the actual human relationships in his own family.
The land boats were fake, but the fire was real.
Exactly. And the fire was a direct result of the party. If there had been no exclusionary feast, no loud parade, maybe Yuanzhou stays calm. The very attempt to perform peace is what created the conflict.
It's a total paradox. The tighter you grip that image of control, the more likely something is to slip through your fingers.
And historically, this moment changes the succession. With Yuanzhou gone, the path opens up for others. This one night of drinking and archery literally shifted the future of the Song dynasty.